Hey, on my Travel Ones podcast today, I have Kendall Reusing. How are you today, Kendall?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. I appreciate the time. You, let's see, how we put this. Kendall is a full-time practicing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt. What do you say you have for a career? You're an instructor, right?
Yeah, it's a good question. Kind of multifaceted. I am definitely a full-time black belt as far as like a competitor, so I do compete full-time around the world, but I also own and operate almost 4 jiu-jitsu schools, so I do teach and manage a business full-time as well.
So you're busy, is what you're saying?
Oh, yeah. Busy, that's for sure. Yeah, definitely very busy, but I love what I do. So I'm not a huge fan of the phrase, like, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, because I do think it's still hard work, but you have a lot more why around what you're doing, which always helps, especially when things get tough. So, yeah, sure. I love what I do, but very busy.
Well, and I'm not going to out you, but you're young.
I am.
Very young.
I'm 23. I'm a baby still.
You're younger than both of my daughters. That's why I say that.
Oh, yeah, super young. I was born in 97, so sometimes when I say that, people are like, oh my gosh, 97. Like, yes, 97. I'm almost a Gen Zer, but not quite.
Almost. You wish. Or not. So I'm really curious. You've literally been around the world competing in jiu-jitsu. You know, what are some of the places you've visited with either training or for fights?
Did you say my favorite?
Sure.
Oh, I wasn't. Yeah, I didn't know if I caught the word. Yeah. So, yeah, been so many beautiful places, but honestly, one of my favorite places that I've ever been was Thailand. And when I was there, I got to go on this really interesting, like, guided trip where they took you to some of the touristy places, but also to a bunch of kind of places like back in the country that you normally wouldn't go. And I think the major reason it was one of my favorites not only was, you know, the beaches were beautiful, the food was great, but I really got to learn a lot about culture, of a different culture that is so different than here in the West, right? So that was probably one of my favorite trips for, like, educational purposes. And then another place I think is really interesting for jiu-jitsu. I've traveled to the Middle East quite a lot.
Yeah.
I've gone there quite a few times to fight. They love jiu-jitsu there. It's interesting. They actually have jiu-jitsu in their elementary schools and their middle school and high schools as a requirement for their schooling, like we do PE. So that's really crazy.
Are you there, Kendall?
Yep. Oh. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, it just broke up at the end.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. I just think it's interesting because if you went back and you weren't around, but 25 years ago, and told people you're gonna be able to make a career at jiu-jitsu, people would have laughed at you.
Oh yeah.
I mean, even like your dad, who I know started a long time ago. Mm-hmm. You know, it wasn't even. I'm trying to remember back. 'Cause I started training at the Gracie's 90, probably about the time you were born.
Yeah.
But
probably around the same time as my dad then, because I think he started in 95.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. It's just amazing to me that you're able to make a living doing that. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty wild how things have developed. As you know, jiu-jitsu is one of the fastest growing sports in the world, and it's become, you know, it's a newer thing, but it's getting so popular for a bunch of reasons. One of the biggest reasons is through MMA, and so a lot of times people think that if you want to make a living through martial arts, then you have to be a UFC fighter, right? And that's a very popular avenue for a lot of people. But what's happening now is that it's kind of like when in wrestling, they started to take wrestling out of the Olympics, and so wrestling had to take a look at their rules and make things really exciting. And I was wrestling at the time, so that was devastating. But they had to take a look at their rules and make things really exciting and make it very viewer-centric. So jiu-jitsu organizations have started to do the same thing. And as a result, people are getting really excited and interested in jiu-jitsu. And so there's more viewers. And so when there's more viewers, there's more opportunity and there's more money. So if you know how to negotiate and market yourself and do brand deals and things like that, then and also, of course, you're also one of the best. That's a requirement too. Then You
Yeah.
can definitely make a living. And it's teaching, is huge as well. We do instructionals, we do private lessons, seminars, things like that. And that's all without even owning a school, without even having to have the capital to go ahead and start an academy. But that's all, that's like another avenue as well. That's very, that's proving to be a great avenue for a lot of competitors. So a couple different ways to do things for sure.
Well, I was curious, like, how bad did the lockdown affect you last year? Over the last year and a half, I guess.
Yeah, it was wild. I mean, so we had 2 schools at the time, and was in campus, and that was in March, obviously. And so we had to shut down our schools, but there's a couple different ways it affected me. It affected me as as an athlete, of course, event stopped, but it also affected us as school owners, and my family and I, and a couple other people. So they shut down, and we immediately took everything to Zoom, which so many people did. But we did it like literally, within 24 hours. We were teaching on Zoom. Our students were doing it. But man, you cannot pay me to do March and April again of 2020. Like that was some of the toughest. I mean, we were on the phone all day with clients and angry customers and people who were terrified because they were getting laid off. And it was like, we were in contract. It was just absolutely horrific. And we were trying to keep all of our employees on, and we did, thank goodness, and keep them working. And it was just wild. We ended up opening back in June when California things were lifted. We opened with modified capacity and things like that. And then California shut back down, and all of our students begged us to stay open, and our employees were working, and we weren't back up to speed, but at least we were surviving, not dying anymore as much. And so we stayed open. So I've been open since June. And then in July of last year, we actually opened a third location in Newport Beach. So it was kind of crazy to do that at that time. It was a little wild, but it's in Orange County and things were a little more lax. And people wanted to train. People were calling us off the hook, so we decided to do it. And then as an athlete, events obviously shut down and training was hard because we didn't have our normal training. But I'm really lucky. I live with my partner, who's also a competitor and a black belt. So we were able to at least, train with each other and still get better and work on jiu-jitsu. But definitely things were slow for a minute there. But events picked up, if I'm not mistaken. I think I started fighting again in June of 2020. So only a couple months, really. Many other people are at a higher disadvantage or a bigger disadvantage, especially those living abroad, where they can't come to the United States where most of the events are happening right now. So that's been a struggle for a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I think so interesting. Like, it's the lockdown affects everybody that travels, but the gym owners really got hammered.
Yeah, well, and I think one of the biggest blessings that I kept trying to come back to is that I do have so many. Or have multiple streams of revenue where I did not rely on fight purses to survive and pay my bills. A lot of people do. They rely on sponsorship deals and fight purses to pay their bills. And for me, I mostly, my major salary is from our company. Yeah. And so while those, of course, were not doing as well as we normally do, and we had to try to do our best to stop competing, and we didn't get any financial support. I know many people did not get really any government support. So since, all that was going on, it was a struggle. But I still, I think for anybody who was able to teach and find different ways to stay financially fit during that time, we were all really lucky to be able to do so, rather than, having one job and then getting laid off and then feeling powerless. A lot of times, during this lockdown period, especially in the first 6 months or so, people were very angry. Me too, right? I was very angry and upset. But at the same time, it's my opinion that if you're a business owner, there are going to be times like this, right? My parents opened their first school in 2008. It was like a crazy situation, almost went under. And so if you're going to own a business, there are going to be, maybe not another pandemic, but there's going to be times where you have to decide, like, are you a peacetime general or are you a wartime general? And if you're not eligible to be a wartime general, then being an entrepreneur may not be your best career path, right? So we got through it. Maybe we did what we had to do.
Lost you there, Kendall.
I can hear you.
Hello?
Hey, can you hear me?
It just keeps breaking in and out.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Everything sounds clear? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. You're able to edit it, right?
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry. I usually this area is not bad at all. We should be clear hopefully from now the next 30 minutes. So sorry about that.
No worries. Yeah,
Cool.
I don't get too stressed out about things.
That's good.
Well, yeah, the one bit of advice I got from my dad, or actually it wasn't my dad, it was a friend. He said you can judge the size of the person by the size of their problems. I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting to kind of contemplate for a second. I'm thinking about it while you said it.
Well, I used to golf a lot, and then the guy was like, you're letting a ball an inch and a half in diameter affect your day? Like, really? I'm like, oh, man, okay. So, there you go. There's the shared wisdom. Yeah. What are your...
I really like that.
You can use it. I'll let you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, do you see a difference in the jiu-jitsu training? I mean, I'm sure you've talked to your dad about it too, but you know the sport jiu-jitsu versus self-defense jiu-jitsu. Do you think there's a difference, and do you see it, or do you teach it? How do you go around that?
Yeah, I would say there's a slight difference, or even like a moderate difference, because what you see kind of, or in my opinion, self-defense jiu-jitsu can almost always, except for strikes in sports, can almost always be used inside sports jiu-jitsu. But there is a lot of sports jiu-jitsu, they wouldn't necessarily use self-defense, right? So I don't think it necessarily goes both ways. But when you call sport jiu-jitsu, if you're at an academy that has like a set curriculum, or at least have a good understanding of how to teach a beginner versus someone who's advanced, then everyone starts with self-defense and basic fundamental positioning. And the first thing that we focus on, whether you are someone looking for self-defense or someone with expertise, is escape and survival. That has to be number one, because if you're not able to survive, there's no opportunity for you to ever attack. So, because you're going to get submitted, or you're going to get punched, or you're going to get beat up, or whatever, or just mounted and held, or whatever the case might be. So, again, I think starting with self-defense and fundamentals is where everybody typically starts for the most part in most academies, and then you kind of build from there. And then, again, some things in sports jiu-jitsu will not be applicable, but self-defense and basic fundamentals is always applicable inside jiu-jitsu. So I'd say that would be the major difference. But sports jiu-jitsu becomes, I think, more so just fun for people, and kind of keeps up training. Whether you're focusing on sport or self-defense, you're going to be in better shape to defend yourself, just because you continued your training consistently.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think that's where that really comes into play.
Well, what's your take on gi and no gi?
So whatever it takes to have fun. My answer.
Well,
gi and no gi. Do you have like a?
Go ahead, Kendall.
Oh yeah. So gi and no gi. I mean, I don't know if you have a specific question on it. There's a lot of hot debates in it right now. Like, what's more exciting? What's the future? What should people be focusing on? Self-defense? What's applicable? Which avenue are we talking about?
Well, yeah, I guess I don't know. I always look at like no gi seems more applicable towards streets, and that's kind of, I mean, 10th Planet kind of went into that route because you're not always going to have a gi on, so I get it. But then, like, the traditionals are always wearing gis.
So it's funny, actually. I have a very different opinion on this, and I would say that in no gi, when we're training, we are not allowed to grab any material. It's illegal in every competition and in training. You can't grab someone's rash guard, you can't grab someone's shorts. But you're never going to fight someone. I hope you're never going to fight someone naked. So if you think about it, like in a self-defense situation, if you think about it, I think gi is actually a lot more applicable to self-defense. When you're in a self-defense situation, you are allowed to grab the person's clothes. So if someone has on a jacket, now you can do a collar choke with that jacket. If someone has a T-shirt, it's funny actually, my dad used to bring a bag of like giant Walmart T-shirts to his fundamentals classes sometimes and have everyone put them on and be like, look, do this collar choke with this t-shirt, and I'm telling you, it's really effective. So, yeah, I mean, in my opinion, like, no-gi is almost less applicable to me because you're never going to fight someone naked or someone you can't grab their clothes. And in the gi, it may be thicker material, but usually people are going to have something on that you can grab. And most of the stuff that we teach as far as fundamentals and self-defense doesn't even rely on the uniform. More sports jiu-jitsu does. So, yeah, there's a couple different ways of looking at it, but that's my opinion because you can't even grab the uniform, so I think that's a little bit unrealistic. I mean, I love no-gi, it's super fun, but for self-defense, I would argue that clothing is more common.
Yeah.
I hope.
Well, when you are you doing much instruction at other gyms right now, or are you just kind of working on the 3 that you have at home?
So I'm just teaching on the 3, and we're about to open the 4th. I do, like, whenever I travel for competitions, I typically will teach a seminar at a local school, some private lessons, and things like that. But I don't regularly teach at other schools. It's more of like a seminar event.
Well, yeah, because I was going to ask you, when you, like you just got back from Texas and winning the big belt.
Yeah.
Yeah. What, do you ever spend extra time there? Like if you go to Abu Dhabi or if you go to all these, Thailand, are you intentionally booking, like, I want to see the world while I'm out there?
Occasionally I do. Most of the time I end up coming home pretty quickly afterwards just because I do work full time. So it's a little bit tough to be away from the school. I think if I was just a competitor, I probably would do that.
Yeah.
But I usually, I sometimes give myself a day or two. Like when I was in Texas this past weekend, I stayed an extra. I made my flight really late the day after so I could go train with some friends and things like that. So I do little things, but for the most part, I'm usually, like I was laughing the other day. I don't even know if I can consider the last time I traveled that wasn't jiu-jitsu related. So I need to plan a day trip or something to go and just relax because when you're fighting, it's great, it's super fun, and it's a beautiful experience. But you're on the job. You're working and you're nervous and you're anxious. So you get there, you acclimate to the time zone or whatever. You're anxious and get ready to fight the whole time. Fight, and then you leave the next day. So you never really get to explore, experience, or be on vacation. You just have to do all this travel to get to this place. I will say though, there are a couple times where I've spent an extra day or two. Like in Abu Dhabi, I snuck out to go see some stuff right before my flight, and then when I was in European the last time in Lisbon, I extended my trip 2 days. So yeah, I do sometimes, but yeah, so I try to get a couple days here and there. If you're gonna fly, might as well see as much of the world as you can whenever you can do so.
Well, see, I was the same way when I first started traveling for work. I was like, I'm just in and out, and all of a sudden I'm like, people started asking me, hey, did you go see that? Did you go see that? Did you? And I'm like, no. So now I wanted to go back, and now there's some places I know I won't go back to. So you got to
right, and you're already going all the way halfway across the world. You're going here and there, so you might as well do it. I just find it with me, I usually have to come back from work, so that's kind of where. But the more the businesses grow, and the more I am, the best manager I can be as far as growing. Your business is not that great if it can't survive without you for a couple of days, type of thing. That's kind of my attitude now. So the more I can grow my team to be self-sufficient, then hopefully I'm able to be away just a little bit more and take advantage of those things a couple days at a time. So that's definitely the plan.
And I'm sure you get asked all the time, but how much did your wrestling career affect your jiu-jitsu career?
Oh, a whole lot. I mean, I actually started jiu-jitsu when I was 5, and then when I was 12, I stopped, and I did judo as a kid too when I was 7 to 12. And when I was 13, I started wrestling in high school, and I started wrestling 100% all in. And I started wrestling with Team USA, and I got into the international team, and I went to travel for the Cadet World and things like that. So I was wrestling at a pretty high level, and then I wrestled in college for a year. So I wrestled from 13 to 18, and then I came back to jiu-jitsu. So when I came back to jiu-jitsu, it had been, it's 6 years, 5 or 6 years since I had done jiu-jitsu, and so it was a little bit obviously out of practice, but I had a whole new level of intensity and stand-up knowledge than I had when I left. So it took a while to adjust, and when I came back, I was technically a blue belt, but I hadn't trained since I was 12, and I competed as a blue belt when I was 12 and 13, a little bit, a couple of years early, because there weren't a lot of women at the time, or girls. So I competed with the adult women when I was 12 and 13 in blue. So when I came back in 18, I'm a blue belt, and I didn't really have much jiu-jitsu, so I kind of just took everyone down. And that really was like the story of my blue and purple belt career. And then I think I really started learning jiu-jitsu as like a brown belt, which is wild because of course I remembered a lot from when I was a kid, and I had a lot of athletic ability, and I had great takedowns, but I didn't understand any of these sports jiu-jitsu positions that had been developing or that people learn as adults, because most of the time, they do now, like people learn stuff as kids. They teach them bare holds, they teach them spider guard, they teach them single leg act. But when I was a kid, no one ever taught us anything like that. So it was all brand new to me, and I still feel like I'm behind. I still feel like I'm catching up, but it is what it is. So yeah, my wrestling definitely has made a difference in a lot of matches, because a lot of times I get the first points and then I really ride that wave and dominate from there. But yeah, huge difference. And the judo, of course, has been a big part too.
Yeah, on the throws. Yeah. Well, I always find like wrestlers that learn jiu-jitsu. Well, yeah. Conversely, like Henner Gracie, who grew up doing jiu-jitsu his whole life, wrestled in high school and did really well. So they definitely cross over.
I think they complement each other, and more than the actual technique, I think that the kind of person that has like the discipline and the drive to be excellent in one is definitely going to be able to be excellent in the other because of the discipline and the drive. I think that really plays a big part, and the willingness to learn and be open. Jiu-jitsu and wrestling are both such humbling sports because you're literally getting beat up by another human being and either getting pinned and having to accept defeat, or you're getting tapped out. So with those kinds of things, it really, especially being done as a kid, it shapes the way that your ego works and the way that you have open-mindedness about learning new things. So because of that, I think if you do one, it's very, not easy, but it's very likely that you can be great in another as well. At least that was my experience, and I've seen that with a lot of wrestlers coming to jiu-jitsu and vice versa, like you said with Henry. So yeah, very common thing for that reason, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. When you're traveling, you've been fighting at super heavyweight, right?
I have been, yeah. I think I may be going down, but that hasn't happened just yet. But I might be going down ahead. But yeah, I've been at super heavy.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Like when you travel, like I know a lot of the fighters that have to cut weight, especially a lot of weight. Traveling isn't a lot of fun for them. Whereas you get to eat.
Yeah.
But how important is diet when you're getting ready up to a fight?
I would say that my diet is pretty the same all the time, whether I'm traveling, getting ready for a competition, anything like that, because like you said, I don't have to cut weight. I mean, I'm very familiar with having to cut weight because I did in wrestling. I mean, I would walk around at 185 and I would have to be 165 or 158 depending on the age group I was competing in. So I would be doing like 20 to 30 pounds very consistently all the time, like once a month or once every couple of weeks. So, with that being said, I mean, traveling was horrendous when I was doing that because you're just miserable. You can't eat, you can't drink water 24 hours before. And so you're walking around the airport and doing like 30-hour travel with different countries and layovers and stuff. You're just dead the whole time carrying all your stuff. So with that, I mean, that's definitely not something I advocate for, and I don't think that it's a long-term solution because I'm totally miserable. I ended up with severe eating disorders. I had to, that's the major reason I didn't go back to wrestling after I stopped because I just could not maintain that weight. And I was supposed to be going to the hospital so many times and passing out from cutting weight. And you name it, I did it, right? So as far as cutting weight goes, that's why when I came to jiu-jitsu, I was like, look, could I compete at heavy? Sure. But am I going to enjoy myself doing it? Is it smart for me mentally? Is it going to be safe for me to start dieting and not sure how far I'm going to go down the rabbit hole? No. So with all that being said, I went super heavy. So for now, traveling is easy.
Yeah. I was the same. I was the same way with wrestling. Like for a lot of people, like I wrestled and I had to lose weight, but then my football coach was telling me to gain weight. So I was, my wrestling coach saying, "Oh, you need to cut another 15 pounds." My football coach saying you need to gain another 15 pounds. So I hated it.
Yeah.
The weight loss was terrible.
Yeah, that's wild. And it causes so many problems, especially in the developing body, and also I would even argue that it's more of a mental issue than anything else. Of course, it's unhealthy for the body, but mentally, especially when you're such a young kid, like, it really changes the way, at least for me, how I view my body, what I thought I should be, or what's supposed to be my value. Like, all of a sudden, once I started cutting weight, my value was based on what the scale said in the morning. If it was light, then I was going to have a great day. Or if it was light, I was going to have an okay day. And if it was heavy or not what I wanted it to be, I was a piece of crap, and I was going to have the worst day ever, and I hated myself. So, and I knew I was going to have to torture myself with weight cutting and starving to get to where I needed to be. So really, a lot of what we do in high school and college, and even further than that, wrestling, is like glorified eating disorders. It really is.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
People make it acceptable because it's for the team, and it's for the competition, and it's for the title. And, when you're taking young kids and putting them through that, and then they're listening to their coach, they trust and believe has their best interest in mind, it's really psychologically damaging. So I've been out of wrestling for about 5 years now. I've been in recovery from eating disorder for about the same amount of time. And I'm just now, kind of realizing the damage that was done. I'm really grateful I'm not in that place anymore. But anyway, coming back to the diet when I'm traveling, my food stays the same all the time. I eat in a way that supports my lifestyle, that makes me happy, that feels good to me physically, and gives me good performance. And that works for me. And I don't really worry too much about the skills.
Yeah, it's interesting you said all that, because I totally agree with it. I think weight cutting, especially in high school when boys and girls' bodies are growing, it's just stifling. So I'm totally against the big weight cuts in high school.
Yeah, it's wild, and I'm definitely against the weight cuts. And even when you get into college and international wrestling, and the reason why is because you've taken now these amazing athletes who are in their 20s and 30s who have grown up through this their entire life.
Yep.
So when they're cutting 15, 18 plus pounds, they know that it's uncomfortable, but they've been doing it for so long. And the problem is, for me, is that I got away with it. And I think that's really where the problem lies, is that if you take these great athletes with the most grit and resilience you've ever seen, these high-level international wrestling athletes, and you take them and they lose 15 pounds, they cut 15 pounds in an unhealthy way, then they go and compete and they win. Well, why would they not do it again?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They have this medal. They feel a lot of pride. They're getting a lot of attention. They have all these accolades. They're getting sponsorship deals. They're making international teams. They have the Olympics on their mind. So when you're having this and they're getting away with it, then there's no way that they're going to stop. And so that was what happened to me, actually, was the biggest blessing in my life, was that I stopped winning. And it was devastating. It was so devastating, but I just couldn't perform at two different events. It was the college nationals and it was the U.S. Open in 2016. And I absolutely could not perform. I looked like garbage, and my body wouldn't move. And I had these big nervous breakdowns afterward. I thought I was going to go to the hospital both times. It was just horrible. And I started to really to get this slap to my face, this reality of, I don't know if you're going to be able to keep doing this, babe. I don't think this is going to keep working for you. Yeah. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
It's kind of weird how that works out, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it forced me to look at what I was doing and really showed me, okay, this isn't going to be a long-term solution. You've got to figure something else out. And at the time, I had no idea what that was, and I couldn't really see that. But now, looking back, that's really what saved me. Because if I had just won nationals and won the U.S. Open, and I had been winning everything. And if I had continued to do that, I don't know if I would have been able to get out, and who knows what would have happened to me health-wise. It's kind of scary to think about.
That's crazy. Do you think that's part of what you plan on doing in the future as well as just teaching? I mean, because you can really be an inspiration to the young girls that are coming up trying to deal with the weight cuts, even if they don't wrestle, just life in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I try to use a lot. I try to talk a lot about on my social platforms, so like especially Instagram and Facebook, TikTok, things like that, and Twitter. And so I try to talk a lot about it on social media because I feel like it's the best distribution I can get at this time. But I'm definitely interested in doing as much talking about it as I can because the peace that I've been able to find within myself, of course, I'm a happier person, but I'm also actually in the best shape of my life and I'm much healthier and I'm just really happy, right? So but I'm also, the best athlete I've ever been. Once I stopped focusing so much on making weight, I've had the most championships I've ever had in my life, and so I think it's important to spread that message of whether they're athletes or not, or cutting weight or not, like being friends with your body, like being on the same team rather than fighting it, has really changed it. So, yeah, I don't know exactly what the avenue is, and whether it's, public speaking or just continue to talk about it on social media or podcasts, but definitely a big important, big mission of mine for sure.
So, I'd like to wrap it up by having my listeners know how they can reach out and follow you. I know you were just talking about doing a new YouTube show or channel show.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that. So every single platform that you can think of that I use, like Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram, and now YouTube, is under Kendall Reusing. So KENDALLREUSING. There's no underscores or anything. Kendall, and then my last name is spelled like Reusing. So anything that any of those platforms, that's my username, and you can find me there. And follow me, send me a message. If you have any questions about anything, just send it to me and I'll get back to you. YouTube, I'm very excited because I feel like there's just a lot of information you can pack into this spoken word. So I did a 5-week vlog for this last one that I wouldn't title it. I haven't posted it or edited it yet. I did a 5-week vlog. I'm going to do Q&A and then probably do another one on weight cutting. So those will be coming pretty soon. I'm excited.
Well, I love the fact that you're staying super busy.
Yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Exactly.
Sometimes I have to take a step back and relax and fun, but for the most part, I think, like you said earlier, when you love what you do, it doesn't make it easy, but it makes it, you're so passionate about it that you want to keep going. The drive is there. So that's how I know I'm in the right place. I want to be with it.
Yeah, well, just keep going. You're doing great.
Yep. Thank you.
So again, thanks for the time, and I will continue to follow you. It's awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. I really enjoyed getting to talk a little bit and getting to know more about your story, and look forward to hearing this when it comes out too. I'll share it on all my social media and stuff like that also.
Maybe I'll have to skip down and take a class.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you in LA?
Yeah, I'm in Redondo Beach.
Okay. Oh, that's not far.
Yeah.
Yeah, anytime. I mean, we have our Newport school. We have Corona and Riverside as well. Just shoot me a text. You're really welcome to come. I can send you the schedule. And it'll be great to meet you in person and train for sure.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Okay. Well, thank you thanks so much, and have a great day.
Thank you so much. You too. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye, Kendall.